Morning guys. Why is it whenever we decide to do a little video and talk to our friends, the wind picks up? I'm really sorry. We've got our mic on and we've got the baffle on. I just hope that you can hear me okay. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about burns. As you saw previously, the burns video that I did in Ayrshire, as a historian, I want to make things interesting. And one thing that I do realise is there's other people doing historic videos. There's other people touching on nice scenery in Scotland, and there's other people doing it as good, if not better, because I'm not someone who's used to talking in front of a camera. I am used to being in a lecture theatre with students that interact, or if they don't, at best they fall asleep. But you guys are interested and you're listening to me, and I find that fascinating, and I really love doing this YouTube. Why am I doing YouTube? Why am I not in the lecture theatre? Personal reasons, but the main reason, guys, is I suffer with motor neuron disease. And as a lecturer and a doctor of history, I struggled. I was one stage ahead of remembering the dates for my students. And when I've got master's students going on to do their PhD, I want to make sure that they're getting the very best sponsorship from their sponsor as possible. And I didn't feel I was given that. And lockdown came along with COVID, and we were to teach delivering things over the internet. And I just didn't think it was me. I couldn't do it. I was one stage ahead of the kids only by doing a lot of swatting and reading, and that's not how I teach. I used to be renowned for having the water fights of battles throughout the university, causing havoc, but the students all remembered those battles and they remembered what side they were on. That's how I taught, and that's what I enjoyed doing. But sadly, I didn't feel I could do it any longer. My interest in history is still there, and my doctorate's still there, and so I want to share with you guys as much of my passion and information. But you will have to forgive me. I know all the information's in that old grey matter of mine, and quite often you'll see me look to the cameraman, Jess, for inspiration, because she is very good at knowing what I'm trying to say, and she has heard it probably 100 times before, so she knows what it is that I'm talking about, and normally is good at prompting. Going back to Burns, because that's what we're here to talk about. Robert Burns was an interesting chap, as we know. Sorry about that. Was an interesting chap, as we know. He lived mostly between Ayrshire and Dumfries and Galloway. And in Dumfries and Galloway, he moved to Ellisland Farm, which is on the A76 heading into Dumfries. It's actually really not far from where we stay here in Thornhill. Ellisland Farm is a lovely little farm, but he was struggling to make ends meet. He was constantly going from one paycheck to the next, if you like. It was hard times, very hard times. And him and Jean Armour had the children to worry about and was trying to build things to be better. They also lived in a flat in Dumfries for a short time, which I'm going to take you to. And then they lived just prior to his death in what's known as Burns's house in Dumfries. And it's now a museum where you can go in and go round. Hi guys, and welcome to the Friars Carse, as it's known today. The Friars Carse goes way back to dates of long time, but more recent records, 1465, show that the Cardinal Antonio asked the Pope for permission to have a monastery built here in the grounds. That was granted in 1465. During the time, it was changed ownership and became owned by the Riddle family or Riddall family. It became known as Glenriddle, And Glenriddle, the house of Glenriddle, was the name that was given to it when Burns was about. And the Riddle family would have had the house here where people used to meet and socialise and have a drink or two together. This is where my ancestor, Fergusons of Craigdarroch, Alexander Ferguson, met with Annie Laurie's relative, Robert Laurie of Maxwellton, and also the Riddle family based here. They used to all meet together and they used to have drinking competitions and play games. And I'll tell you a story about The Whistle. The Whistle was a poem that was written by Robert Burns, and it was based very much on a whistle that had been given to Robert. I didn't really understand why this whistle and the significance of this whistle to Robert, so I had to do a bit more digging. And I was very privileged to be in the position of being a Member of Parliament for Kilmarnock. And during my time there, I was at a castle. And I'm not going to mention the name for security reasons, but a castle near Kilmarnock. And it was connected to the Fergusons of Craigdarroch in Moneyhive. And they had the whistle, the original whistle, where Robert Burns and Robert Laurie and Riddle would all compete for this fantastic prestige of having this whistle. So this whistle, where did it come from? What was it all about? Well, it goes way back. It goes back to James VI and Anne of Denmark. They were married, and it's a Danish tradition, an ebony whistle, a bit like a cross between a tin whistle and a flute. And this whistle was played and competed for at the end of a drinking night. And the person that played the sweetest tune or the nicest melody won the competition. And our ancestor, Fergusons of Craigdarroch, were the last people to win the whistle. But going back, Robert Burns got the whistle from competing against the royal family, James VI. And so that whistle was actually descended down and came from Denmark. So it's a real historic, significant piece. And I didn't know that. And I'm sure a lot of people didn't realise the significance of the whistle in that poem. So I've brought you here today because it's something that's not very well known about Robert Burns and this whistle. So you've got the lesser spotted fisherman, native to Dumfries and Galloway only kidding. This is the River Nith, folks. This is a very famous salmon river in Dumfries and Galloway. This is a stunning home. Could you imagine living here? Guinea fowl are used very much like guard dogs. You'll hear them starting to make a racket. They're used to protect property. There's another little covey of them down in the long grass just down to the side there. And they'll alarm call to each other to let them know that there's a great big hairy Scotsman. I was going to say something else there, but we'll keep it polite. There's a big hairy Scotsman coming down the path. So they'll let each other know and they'll make a funny noise. And because I've said that, they're staying perfectly still, not saying a thing. I think these ones have been very much touristised. There's such a word. Become used to tourists and they're not shouting. Normally they'd be shouting. Yeah, you didn't realise that not only are you getting a history tour, you're getting a nature walk and a botany walk. Behind the camera, Jess is an environmental scientist, although she doesn't like anybody to know that. Guys, we're just making our way up to this notice board because on our way in, we noticed that there was something on this board relating to our friend, Mr. Rabbie Burns. Ah. Robert Burns lived in a farm at Ellisland, which we've talked about, just downstream from the Friars Carse, between 1788 and 1791. As a frequent visitor to Friars Carse, he shared his love of poetry and music with the Riddells. We talked about that, guys, who owned the Friars Carse at the time. The short walk along the River Nith from Ellisland is often said to be where his muse was at his most prolific, and Annie Laurie, one of his well-known works, is thought to have been a product of these walks. When enjoying the hospitality of the Riddells, one particular benefit he enjoyed was to stay in the small building in Crowwood, known now as Burns' Hermitage. The Burns Hermitage. The Hermitage was built by Robert Riddle, roll your R's, as an occasional retreat for people staying and enjoying the grounds at the Friars Carse estate. It has been restored on more than one occasion, the most recent work being done in 2009 when the windows were removed for safe storage at the Friars Carse. At different times the building has been used to hold stock, although it is now kept as a memorial to the bard Robert Burns. It measures 10 foot by 8 foot and has a single window and a fireplace. While staying in the Hermitage, Burns wrote the following lines on the window to memory of Robert Riddle. He was very, very common about doing that. There's many pubs the Globies go done it in, and I believe there's some in Ayrshire. He gets a diamond scribe or ring and he scribes into the window with the diamond. It's also in his house at Dumfries. He's written in the window too. So he's very well known for vandalising windows. So the verse goes, "Thou who chance may hither lead, be through clad in russet weed. Be thou decked in sleekened stole, grave these counsels on thy soul. Life is but a day of most, sprung from night and darkest lost. Hope not sunshine ever, ever, fear not clouds will always lower." So that's signpost to the Friars Carse and to the Hermitage. I'll take a wee donder up, see how far it is. There's another poem, you know the True a Moose by Robert Burns? Well, I've got another one here. "Take a fart, hold your bum tight to the chair to try and stop the leaking air. Shift your ass from cheek to cheek and pray to God it doesn't reek." So what do you think of my little poem I wrote?
You didn't write that.
What do you mean I didn't write that? Okay, I must confess, I didn't write it. A student wrote it once when we were doing poetry, and I tell you, I thought it was great. I thought it was up there with Burns, so I've left it in. And if you don't know what reek means, it's smell. It's a Scottish word for smell. From monks to masons. Long before the Hermitage was built, the land here around the Friars Carse belonged to the Cistercian monks from Melrose. In 1786, the owners of the Friars Carse, Robert Riddle, built the Hermitage as a retreat within Crowwood. It was later used by his friend Robert Burns during his time at nearby Ellisland. It was here that Burns first met Francis Gross, who asked him to write a witch story. The result was Tam O'Shanter. In the years that passed after this, the Hermitage became derelict not until 1862, when Thomas Nelson moved into Friars Carse did the heritage receive any attention, Nelson renovated the building and decided to add Masonic symbols in memory of Robert Burns' reputation as a Freemason. Well, there you go, the Star of David. Restored in 1874. Oh! We sleek it, coon, timorous beastie. Oh, what a panic. Oh, look, there's two of us. How did I honestly have not been in here, guys. I did not know that that was going to happen. I just came in here and on the desk is two a moose. I think what was in my head was two a fart, sorry guys, but when I saw two a moose, that just surprised me. We sleek it, coon, timorous beastie. Oh, what a panic in thy breastie. Thou needna start awa sae hasty, wi' brickle and brackle. I would be laith to run and chase thee, wi' myrtle and prattle. Wow, I just love the rrr and the rrr. I just love the way that the Scots dialect is rolled off the tongue. See the stone there, it says Burns. It's a brawy building, this, with a fire. I love it. I could see how he could sit here for hours writing poetry. It's so secluded in the middle of nowhere. This is what history's about, guys. How many of you knew that this existed for Burns? Because I'm going to be honest, I didn't know until today. This is what researching history is all about. And the lovely thing is, it's so trusting that it's open, but we make sure that we close everything up when we leave. This is no word of a lie. We went somewhere in Edinburgh on the Royal Mile, and I don't know if you know this, but the Royal Mile was built up on levels, and peasants during the plague were shut in a lower level and basically bricked in, for want of a better description. But they opened it up and made a tourist attraction out of being able to go down and see. And we went down to this close, and we were in a room when Jess turned round to the guide and said, that music is very loud, and the noise of the cows. And the lady said, there's no noise of cows. She said, but this is where the cattle were kept. And I think we all got a bit freaked out. We thought Jess was winding us up. And but you could see from Jess's face that she was definitely alarmed. And whether you believe this or not, she could hear the cattle. And then as we moved further on, there was people with us in the group who also were like Jess and could hear the cattle when none of us could. And then later on, they were going down the close, which is like an alley, a lane. And as we were going down the lane, Jess said, I can hear clip-clop noise like horses coming, and wagon wheels creaking and groaning like they're coming along. And we were like, what? And she said, this is the road that the chap would come out with the cart, bring out the dead. And the creaking wheels of the cart would be because of the body's weight on the cart, and the horse would be pulling it along. And you'd have the old plague doctor's mask on as they were shouting, bring out the dead and ringing the bell. And did you hear the bell as well?
I didn't hear the bell, it was more the animal sound and like the cartwheels I heard.
I don't know if you heard that, guys, but she said that she heard the animal sounds and the cartwheels more than bells and things. But genuinely, she'd never been there before. I know that, being her dad. And she seemed to know exactly where the animals were being kept, and there was no signs on the wall or anything. And we were with friends of ours, Barry and Laura, and they too could not hear what Jess was hearing, but were taken aback that she was able to describe everything before the guide had a chance to tell us what was going on.
Yeah, it's so loud.
So loud.
Yeah. Like 4 or 5 cattle in that shed.
Wow.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Again, I don't know if you heard, she said there could have been 4 or 5 cattle in that shed. It was that type of volume, and she thought it was a tape player going. She was convinced there was sound effects. The problem was only her and one other lady could hear it, the rest of us hadn't got a clue what she was talking about. So ever since then, Jess is our family go-to if there's something a bit spooky. And back there in the heritage, she felt something. Was it a negative or a positive feeling?
It's hard to be fair, I wasn't in there long enough to tell. I think it took me unawares.
Was it? I did feel it cool in there, but then it's a very hot, stuffy day today in Scotland, and that's an old stone building in a wood. So
that gets quite warm in the summer.
This is true. So do you think that was a presence there? We need to get Jess paid to do these ghost tours next day.
Thanks. I'll pass.
She said she'll pass on that one. No, she doesn't fancy that much. What we're trying to do, guys, is we're trying to take you to places and things that aren't commonly thought about when people think about a Burns tour. Burns is done historically a lot, but we're trying to take you to places that you wouldn't know and tell you stories that you may not know. I mean, you might, especially if you're a big history buff about Scotland, but I'm trying to find things that are just that little bit different to show you. So hopefully you're enjoying the fact that there's a little twist to this. Just while we're walking, guys, I came up with an idea, and I don't know what you think about this idea, but as a doctor of history, I've always had a really strong leaning to learning Scottish Gaelic. It's something that I can't speak. I learnt German at school and I became relatively proficient at German, but I couldn't speak the Scottish Gaelic, even though my grandfather, it was his first tongue. He spoke Gaelic before he spoke English. And where I grew up in Dunoon, all the road signs are in Gaelic first and English second. So, and you can choose to have your secondary schooling in Gaelic. That wasn't the case when I was at school, just to let you know. But Dunoon Grammar School won awards for being able to be like that. And I don't know about you, but I would really like to help keep that heritage of the language alive. So, my idea, I'm getting a little bit slow with the old grey matter, with the being older, and the MND, as we've discussed. I'm not going to labour that any longer. But those two things mean that learning things for me takes a little bit longer. So what I thought would be good fun is if I do a little thing each video where we learn a phrase or a word. And there's different people on YouTube and other places that teach you Scottish Gaelic. But if we can work together, oh, look at the birds bathing. Sorry, it had its wings right out, was bathing on the sun. Anyway, sorry. Yeah, so what I was saying is, if we could learn a phrase or a word together each video, then when we've had 200 or 300 videos up, we should be able to greet and order basic things like a beer and things in the pub. So I don't know what you think, but I think it's a good fun idea. And the phrase that I've thought about for this one and researched is very good. So that's very good. Gleva. Gleva, very good. Say it again. Gleva. Gleva, very good. So that's today's phrase. I hope you enjoy that one. And every video from now on, we'll try and add in a phrase. So today's phrase is gleva, very good. So that's us back at the car, chaps, and we'll see you at the next place. Thank you very much.